What's up, my dudes? Welcome to another podcast. This time around, I was out visiting my dear old friend Bex from Bexlife.com in the farm country of New Jersey. And we spent the weekend doing all sorts of cool stuff. But we shot a fermentation video, basically making fresh sauerkraut, fresh lacto-fermented sauerkraut, to promote the ebook that we now have available at Everydaydetox.org. And every time you purchase an ebook from everydaydetox.org, you support more podcasts. So please go to everydaydetox.org, support the podcast, buy the book. You will not be disappointed. Vegan kimchi, fresh-made lacto-fermented vegetable recipes, all sorts of troubleshooting tips and resources, all sorts of great things in that book. So please go check that out and sign up for the newsletter while you're over there, and you will receive updates as to when these podcasts air and when we're going to come out with more ebooks and other cool things. So we did a little Q&A session for this podcast. There were Bex Life viewers on YouTube that had some questions about some of the detox videos that we've done or some of the pressing issues out there on the web concerning nutrition and health and detoxification, and we answered a bunch of those questions. We did 2 podcasts. This is the first one. Beastie Summer was in charge of the set design for this podcast, as you can probably see. So we did a great job. She did a great job. And I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll jump right in.
This is my number one frustration. If one more person asks me about a specific food to cure Alzheimer's, to fix their diabetes, to help them to get a flat belly, to prevent cancer, I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind. I really am, because I recall my father, right? I blamed my mother for it earlier when we were talking about this, but it was really my dad, who was so fearful of death. On his deathbed, he was just like, first of all, he was making all the nurses pray for him, which was like, Dad, if Jesus doesn't love you by now.
Like, he was afraid.
He was so afraid of dying, but he was always afraid of dying, and he was always afraid of getting sick. But never in a way that would make him, compel him to do it, the right way, to actually take care of his body. He was always looking for the trick. So he would be in line. It was mostly Reader's Digest fault. It was always the Reader's Digest. And he would say, like, blueberries, the next superfood, antioxidants are going to, prevent you from getting cancer, like prevent cancer. And he would believe this, and he would say, I got to eat blueberries every single day because then I'm not going to get cancer. And it's not the point. It's not one thing. And this makes me nuts, because it's not even about looking for a magic pill or a quick fix. It's that people they are completely blind to the big picture about what true health is. And it's not, my head is exploding already.
It's not the lycopene in the tomato.
It's not the freaking lycopene. I used to own a pizzeria.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in Staten
I forgot
Island.
about that. Yeah.
And that was something that we put on the menu, how the lycopene and tomatoes is like good for you for whatever.
Yeah.
And and people were really excited about that. And I'm like, it really, it really doesn't work that way. If you're eating the pizza, that's not how it works. But in desperation, people are glomming on to these ideas that something is going to save them, and completely abdicating responsibility for saving themselves or doing any research or figuring out how, or live healthier, or understanding that, like, you have to exercise every day. Like, they want to give away the responsibility, and then they get mad when it doesn't work out for them. So I wrote down in a note for this video, I don't want to be negative. I'm just so mad about this. I don't want to be negative. The title, and you made a face, fruit isn't that good for you.
Okay.
And this is spawned by a lot of different things, and we're not even going to bring up any names. We're not going to do anything. But, it's like everybody wants this solution, and what it's given rise to, and there's always been trends, is, okay, if you eat a lot of fruits, you're going to be really healthy and you're going to live forever. Or if you eat a lot of bacon, you're going to be really healthy and live forever. And I want people to understand that none of these solutions, none of these methods is the solution.
It does, like, when we examine fruits and vegetables under a microscope, they all have a variety of things they're going to deliver to us, whether it just be some of these basic macronutrients or all these little subtle phytonutrients and trace minerals, and they have this effect, and this study shows that this lowered cancer rates by this, or this has some special antioxidant. it's like a mess all over there. So it doesn't even serve anybody to talk. Like for me, I feel like, okay, if I really got into all the studies and memorized all that stuff and told all my clients, don't you know broccoli's good for the prostate? Don't you know? I could do that all day, but the end result is always the same thing. Eat a variety of fruits and vegetables because they have a whole variety of different effects on our systems. But that's the first part. What a food delivers. We want the food to deliver high quality nutrition. That's easy. If that were it, then steak would be good for everybody because it has protein and iron and zinc and grass fed beef has omega 3 fatty acids and things. So that would be it. But we know that there's more to that. Second part is what a food removes. So this is food as a cleanser. Okay, this is why an apple a day keeps the doctor away because it makes you go to the bathroom. Okay, that's really important. It absorbs metabolic waste, it absorbs things that shouldn't be in our bodies, and it carries it right out of our system. And the third part is the other side of that, and that's what a food doesn't leave behind. So the difference between an apple and a cheeseburger is they both contain things, some good, some bad. There's really nothing in an apple that you're gonna have to recover from. You have to recover a lot from a cheeseburger, but let's say it was the highest quality cheeseburger on the planet. It's going to have some iron and zinc and like all the things that animal food has, but it removes nothing from the body and it leaves a trail of sludge behind. That's where the problem comes in.
Nobody talks about that. See, they're only talking about what the food is giving them. They're not talking about what the food is taking away, like what amount of energy it takes to even digest this food or recover from the food. So it's what am I getting? What am I getting? What am I getting? And I think that this is where the failing of people, I don't want to bring up paleo specifically because I think that I'm going to have somebody else talk about paleo another day. But the pro bacon set, but it's good for me because it has this, and this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still bacon. And it's still, it's doing all kinds of things that you don't want it to do, but nobody wants to acknowledge that because of what good it's doing, and they're just missing the point.
Yeah, because it's something that has to be tremendously balanced. You don't want to have to recover from a food. You want it to like fortify and elevate you want to be better off from eating it than having not eaten it.
Full disclosure, I eat bacon. I don't know what camera I'm looking into, but like I partake in the bacon very rarely, very seldomly, and I know exactly what I'm eating when I'm eating it. It's like it's not health food.
And here's the thing. Raw food vegan diet leaves out everything that you have to balance out or recover from pretty much, right? So, and then as we get into cooked food, it gets a little more complicated. And then as you get into animal food, it gets a little more complicated. So the trick is to try to create a certain percentage of your diet that's best to your lifestyle that you possibly can to be as raw and organic and vegan as possible.
Right.
So V equals P minus O quickly.
Right.
Just as a little refresher. Vitality, which is everything that we want, which is feeling good, disease-free, high level of oxygen in our bodies, strong, quick, mind thinking clearly, skin looking good, everything working properly. V equals P minus O. Vitality equals power or pressure. That's the movement of everything through the body. The gases, the stuff moving in and out of the cells, the oxygen moving into the cells, the nutrients moving freely, the toxins moving out, minus obstruction. And those are things that clog up our systems. It could be arteries loaded with cholesterol. It could be a colon full of food. It could be heavy metals sticking into your cells and creating all sorts of problems and things like that. Smoker's lung, you look at a smoker's lung, lots of obstruction there.
But if you can keep that equation in mind constantly, the V equals P minus O, so you want things to be moving without obstruction, you can do that on any kind of diet. Like you can subscribe to any diet really and find a way to use that within the parameters of that diet. So a paleo person who eats animal products, it's just about having a lot more plants and a lot less animal products. So we're not saying like the only way to make this work for you is to be a vegan, even though that's ideal. It's that like you can use this equation. Why then are people why do we crave these kinds of messages that are overcomplicated if it's really that simple?
I think it's because we need to feel like we're doing something. We need to suddenly feel like we're engaging in something. Because like there's never any questions at 2 a.m. when you're drunk and eating cheese fries in the diner and that whole lifestyle's going on. And it's just like, I do what I like because it feels good. And then the moment it's time to get healthy, it's like, I read that kale has these, goiterogenic properties that could like wreck my thyroid. So maybe I shouldn't eat too much kale. Suddenly, the complicated nonsense starts to come. The brain kicks in.
It's just so sinister though, because people want, I mean, from the perspective of a professional who's trying to get this message out to people, like the good word, to say that it's not that complicated, it's just a simple equation. I'm frustrated with other professionals making it so complicated and saying that you have to like count all of these things like macros and calories and whatever to achieve the goals that you want, because it simply is not true. And when they highlight, like we were talking about a video on the 25 best foods for a flat belly, and it was like
all
bullshit.
They were all head scratchers to me. I didn't understand, having been a colonic therapist too, and understanding how certain foods cause gas, how certain foods expand and absorb water out of your body, and I didn't understand. I didn't get it.
Yeah, well, I didn't get it either, and I'm
Yeah.
not like a colonic person. I'm not giving people colonics or observing. It just didn't make any sense to me. It's all nonsense. But it's this overcomplicated message that's the obstruction. Vitality, it's the same thing with the message. V equals P minus O. Let the good stuff flow freely through you. The stuff that feels good and makes sense to you, that intuitively sounds right. Like eating lots of fresh fruits and veggies, and like if you eat meat, like having it just a little bit in the smallest portion on your plate and all that, or the smallest meal in your week. And then get rid of all the noise, get rid of the obstruction that's getting in the way of you receiving good information. So get rid of all these stupid blogs about the 25 best flat belly foods. We are guilty of titling the videos like that because we're trying to get to those people.
I say this
give them real
cautiously,
information.
but clickbait titles are just like, I find them so annoying. But I feel like I have to do them to some degree too, because boring titled things nobody wants to watch.
Right.
I click on that stuff all the time, like, because I want to.
It's true though. I'm just overly frustrated with the questions that are so specific, and they don't. Your problem is not unique. You're not the first person that had it, and there isn't some magical solution. It's really just about moving every day in a way that feels good, that makes you feel happy, have good relationships, be a good person, smile a lot, maybe throw in some meditation, and eat real food. Close to the ground in its natural state. I keep looking at the camera like we're doing a video podcast.
You could look at the camera.
All right. So, I mean, V equals P minus O. V equals P minus O.
That's the magic right there. And if you're going to put foods in that cause obstructions, got to balance them out. The easiest way to do that is vegan food and raw vegan food. You just eliminate all that stuff, and the vitality that comes is outrageous.
Yeah.
It is so amazing. That's why I built my whole life on that type of thing. Now, here's something before we move on to the next question, that people do get a little confused, because there is a detoxification and a rebuilding process that occurs. And people are going into really deep things. So I see a lot of videos, why a vegan diet didn't work for me, why a raw food diet didn't work for me, why there's, and almost all of the time, and I don't know these people, but when I, if I watch the video and I get a sense of what's going on, how long they did it, what types of foods they were eating, almost all the time they didn't understand the detoxification process or modalities that will help facilitate that process. Things like saunas, things like colonics, of course, and other practices. Detoxification doesn't always mean feeling good. Sometimes it means feeling really bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes it means losing muscle with that fat, Sometimes it means a complete body transformation. Sometimes it means pimples and things coming out. So a lot of people don't quite get that. Sometimes it means a drop in energy where they go, oh, I used to be so much stronger. What happens when someone that's addicted to a drug puts that drug back into their body is they feel better again. When someone's addicted to heroin and they go through withdrawals and they feel disgusting and sick and they got the body aches and all that, and then they put a little heroin back in or methadone, they feel better. It doesn't mean that their vitality's increased. It doesn't mean that was like a nutrient for them that made them feel good. When people stop eating all the heavy animal food and processed food, and then they start to feel sick and they put it back in, and the detoxification process stops because the body doesn't accommodate and release poisons at the same time. They suddenly feel better and they think that it made them better, and they go, I must have been protein deficient. I shouldn't have done that raw vegan thing. People get very confused by that.
Well, the message is that everything that is good doesn't always feel good. And that's with a lot of things in life. For instance, childbirth. So it's a good thing that is uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be avoided. I know. I mean, I don't want to get off track, but there's a lot of big systems in place to allow women to avoid the discomfort of pregnancy and childbirth, and it's gotten in the way of our humanity. So people need to sometimes understand that good things come out of a little bit of patience and a little bit of discomfort, and be okay with that too. I want to talk about a very specific question, but it's a big issue because it was something.
White and gold. It is white and gold. It is not black and blue. Okay, and all those people that say it's black and blue are trying to be cool
This
or
joke is
something.
so tired.
Yeah,
it's so tired. Soy. Let's move on. Soy. So there's a great divide. Soy, is it good? Is it bad? Is it ruining women and turning them into monsters? Like, what's happening with soy? What do you think about it?
Soy in moderate to small amounts is great, just like they do in most Asian countries, and they don't seem to be having any problems. I think that we go overboard with everything. And soy, soy has a lot of plant estrogen in it. So can it affect our hormonal systems? Definitely.
What's the real backlash about? Because now there's bloggers that are like soy free, and if something comes up in a product, like people are freaking out and saying like if soy comes up, they're like, you shouldn't use that at all. And I mean, I'm the same with you. It's like, okay, I can incorporate it into my diet, especially as an alternative to meat. People were like, I like, to have like a little soy product. Like I'll have tofu instead of meat and I'll replace it in this meal, or I'll have soy milk instead of dairy, maybe in my cereal. So I'm okay with that. I think that that's perfectly fine.
I'm with you 100% on that. I think that people do things in excess, though. I mean, look, tempeh is a fermented soy product, amazing. Tofu, technically, it's sort of, people call it a fractured food because it's been processed a little bit. Very little. I think it's a great food. And edamame, soybeans, great food. But when people are looking to eat isolated soy protein, soy milk, these things in their meat products, and they're looking to do this daily. Like they're making spaghetti and soy meatballs, and then they're eating a burger that has soy something in it, and they're having soy milk in their breakfast cereal in the morning that might have soy flour in it and all that.
Yeah.
Like we've done it to death because we go, okay, meat bad, now we do soy. But we need to have more variety in our diets is the thing.
I mean, okay, so this is just the rule then. Have variety in your diet. Try to eat mostly real foods. If you are in transition or you want to substitute for something that you really love and you feel like you can't live without, replace it with something that's slightly better. Why is this so hard?
Here's one important thing though. Processed soy is absolute garbage. Soy milk is disgusting. I've made fresh tofu, fresh soy milk. I worked as a natural food chef. I've made it from the beginning. Soy milk in its fresh natural form, it's fresh, but it's like bean juice. It doesn't taste good. What makes soy milk taste amazing is they emulsify oil and sugar into it.
Okay.
That's what makes it taste good. We can do that with anything. It's basically fat and sugar, and that's what we like.
Yeah, but talk to me about disaster when you say disaster and what that means to people. Because this is where I think that people get confused. So you say soy milk is a disaster, soy and infant formula is a disaster. What does disaster mean?
It means we're taking a natural food that is, we're taking a natural food and we're refining it into something that causes obstruction in the body.
Okay.
So when we take all this refined oil and sugar and we blend it all together with the bean protein and we drink it down, it's not an apple. It's not spinach.
So final verdict on soy.
Miso, phenomenal food. Tempeh, pretty good. Tofu, it's okay. Edamame, excellent.
Let's get into the next topic.
Okay.
All right, so here's another video where I'm going to be nursing. Still the same podcast for you. New video from me. I really want to talk about eggs.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a touchy subject for me because you're a vegan, so you don't eat eggs. I'm a chicken owner.
Yes.
I don't know why that's funny to me.
I think it's great.
So I have chickens. We do not eat the chickens. However, we do eat chicken, not our chickens. And we have eggs. And that is something that I would eat eggs every single day. I love eggs. I think that they're the world's perfect food. Because they taste great.
As it was always taught in nutrition, that egg is the perfect food.
Why is that?
It's because of its protein, complete protein. It has a lot of things that nutritional science valued, especially in the early part of nutritional science.
I really don't want to see any comments about eggs being chicken periods. I'm well aware. Like people think that when they say that to me, that I'm like, oh my god, I had no idea. Like I've seen an egg come out of a chicken. I know what's happening. I know the whole process. That does not bother me to eat a chicken. Period. They are probably not fertilized egg. They might be at this point because I might be eating a chicken
Embryo.
Yeah.
Why? Because you leave them out there too long, and the
Well,
rooster comes and does its thing on
no,
them.
the rooster does the thing on them before they come out.
Oh,
Do
I
you know
don't.
how it happens? Do you know how a
I
chicken gets pregnant?
no, I don't.
So chickens don't have sex organs like humans. So he basically has this kind of jelly or stuff. I don't want to explain this. He basically like rubs it on the opening of the female chicken. And that's
Okay.
what happens. So she becomes fertilized that way. There's no like they don't connect.
Uh-huh.
And then the egg is fertilized and she has the egg. So she's fertilized and then the eggs come out fertilized.
So okay, so the eggs are always fertilized within the chicken's body, and they come out. They just don't develop if you snatch them up quickly enough.
Right. And you don't have to so you're not I mean you're getting a fertilized egg, but it doesn't have anything inside. It looks like a regular egg. So it's nothing like weird or gross to someone who is okay with eating eggs. So a fertilized egg, you'll never know the difference. And there is a remote chance that if you're buying like free range chicken eggs or something from the grocery store that you might get a fertilized egg. Usually they don't keep the roosters with the chickens, but it goes farmer by farmer. So if you're doing like pasture raised, all of that, you might get a fertilized egg.
Okay, so so they don't keep the roosters near the hens. So generally they're not fertilized, but yours are because you have a rooster running
Because
around.
I have a rooster, but you don't need a rooster to get eggs.
Right.
The hens will lay them anyway.
You just need a rooster to get chicks?
Right, exactly. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I got it.
So in that regard, like an egg is like a chicken period because they're going to have the egg no matter what. Like a woman will have her period whether a man is near or not.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
So anyway, I don't know why we went off onto that. But eggs. So I eat them. I like them. I think they're nutritious. What we were talking about is how to eat an egg. Is it an obstruction? Is it messing with the V equals P minus O equation that we talked about in another video? So I'm not going to get back into it.
It does. Yeah, it's an animal food, and especially egg whites can be very congesting and mucus forming. They're very high in protein. Animal protein versus plant protein. There's a very significant difference. In the podcast, I think it was number 3. I did Dr. Fred Bishy. We were talking about cancer, and he was talking about in that podcast how animal protein, especially excess animal protein, can increase human growth hormone, and that not only speeds up the growth of our own bodies. You see all the bodybuilders, like, they're always like they're taking things that will promote. They're eating lots of protein first of all, and sometimes they take supplements that will stimulate human growth hormone, and you see how big their muscles get.
Right.
You see people like me, where I'm eating like apples and pistachios and stuff for lunch. When I lift, I definitely put on more muscle, but I'm never going to look like that, right? Because I don't take an animal protein. But it not only increases healthy cells to grow, but it stimulates cancer cells to grow. So what they find is there's a direct correlation between animal protein and cancer for a variety of reasons, but that's one of them. And then there was that study I showed you. I think it was from Diet for a New America. It was from, I think it was a 1977 Japanese study where he was showing the effects of different dairy products on a population of people, on a population of women in relationship to breast cancer. And the more eggs that somebody eats a week, the higher their incidence of breast cancer. I think it went from almost a 2 times chance to a 3 times increase.
Is that the eggs though?
Well, it is the eggs, but it's hard to say with studies. Studies are they can teach us something, but they're always a little tricky because you have to. I didn't look at the details. We can probably look this study up and do that if we wanted to. But what were those people eating? So you eat eggs, but you also eat salads and smoothies and juices, and you exercise and you breathe clean air, and you know what I mean? I don't know who was eating these eggs. It was done in the 70s. What did people do when they ate eggs in the 70s? They would eat, eggs on a bun with some bacon. They would eat bacon and eggs. They would eat eggs inside of...
Even now, they might be eating an egg McMuffin.
An egg McMuffin, you know what I mean? So there are ways to eat animal foods to balance them out. So when we look at the studies that show these correlations, is there truth to it? Definitely.
I'm anticipating so many comments. All the time when we make these videos, I'm just anticipating the comments. And I know someone's going to get really angry about that.
There's this video on, I think Vice put it out. I think it was one of their Munchies series. And I learned so much from these people, especially the powerlifting people and the weight trainers. And there's this one woman, she eats, I think it's 150 eggs a week, plus all this protein and stuff. And she eats some oats and like, I think a banana or something like that. But like she eats 150 eggs a week. Now, she can probably snap me in half.
So disgusting.
But first of all, I would not want to use the bathroom after her. Second of all, I don't know what is going to go down with her body in the next 10 to 15 years.
Well,
I mean,
you know what? That gets into a whole other discussion because how many times have I seen either some kind of Dove advertisement or some kind of other like body positive advertisement where they have all of these women and they'll have power lifter, supermodel, bodybuilder, ballerina, it goes on. Listen, it's like, all of these women are athletes. All of these women are healthy. And then as soon as they go with like, this is healthy, then I have to say I beg to differ because I know what it takes to make that body and what you're putting into your body to create that is not healthy. It is not conducive to having a long life and good sustainable health and being active and maintaining joint health and all of that, bone health. And that's a whole other issue.
Yeah. Strength is not the same thing as health.
No.
Yeah.
So egg whites, because you want more protein, because you want more muscle, because you want to like build this body. That's not about being healthy. That's about achieving a certain look and achieving a certain level of performance in the here and now. So get your head around that. You sent me an article recently and you asked what my opinion was on it. And the title of the article was, "You don't get to have an opinion about how I give birth or anyone else." And I think that this is going to be the last video for today because I'm going to get super worked up here.
Okay.
This is going to make your podcast long and it's going to make for a very long video.
Speak your mind.
It was like the biggest piece of bullshit that I've ever written. There were so many good points, and then she just tanked the whole thing by saying really stupid things, in my opinion. Because, okay, a little bit of background. So this is a woman. She's also a doula. She wrote an article for Jezebel, one of my favorite sites. Talk about clickbait.
Right?
Oh, gosh.
That's a trap.
I mean, but there's a lot of good stuff on there. I mean, I have to say. But so she wrote this article about how you can't have an opinion about how other people give birth because it's a very personal experience that we don't always have complete control over. Things can go to the left very fast. You can end up in emergency situations in the middle of childbirth. You can end up having a cesarean. And why would we assign any shame to those decisions? And when I have opinions about how women give birth, it is not to assign shame to things that just happen because it sometimes can be a medical experience. When I have opinions about how women give birth, it's to talk about my experience, how I've given birth. It's my opinion about how I've given birth. And then also to offer education and alternatives to women so that they can be educated, empowered. They have tools that they can go into to their care providers and say, like, this is how I want my experience to go. And I want them to feel strong in their own opinions and their own decisions. So I want to offer my opinions as education or just as insight a little bit because I've been there. I've done it a bunch of times. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed experience with friends a bunch of times. I've seen women be very disappointed with their birth experiences, and that has scarred them for life. It has gotten in the way of bonding with their children. It has affected their ability to breastfeed. It's affected their relationship with their partner because they've been so traumatized by birth experience. So she writes this article, and part of the spirit of it was, don't have opinions because you can hurt someone who's already had a hurtful experience. And I get that. I would never judge any woman, especially after the fact, like, oh, you shouldn't have had a cesarean, or you shouldn't have had this intervention, or you shouldn't have gotten the epidural, because what does that serve? But I'm here in service to people to tell them that they can have an experience that they want. And even if the experience goes to the left, even if they end up having, it going not as planned, that they don't have to be traumatized by it, because they can feel empowered and they can feel like they had a say in how things happened. So she's saying don't have an opinion. And it's like, okay, we don't have an opinion. Now what? Who does that serve? Now we don't say anything.
Right. But in the way that she presented it, and the reason I kind of stopped reading it was because I was like, it's like, it was sort of like this trap. It was like this slippery slope into, well, then how could we have an opinion about anything? How could we judge anything then? Like, if you can't be a doula or a health educator and say, I think that we should aim to have, drugless pregnancies, natural pregnancies, if we can, like, or deliveries rather. If you can't have that opinion because it might hurt somebody's feeling, what's the point? People are going to get from birth to death, and we should be able to have an opinion about how we should live life, about how we should do processes, and we should be able to share that because it could inspire somebody into something bigger.
So we have to talk about how much does the process matter. So yes, so someone will say, I smoke cigarettes, I'm going to die anyway, so why not smoke cigarettes? And then we get into talk about like quality of life and length of life and like all of those types of things. And in the same regard with the childbirth experience, yes, it's always the highest priority to have a healthy baby and a healthy mom at the end of it. How much does the process really matter? So we have to answer that question for ourselves. And I'm just talking about birth, and we're going to talk about food and like all the other stuff too. But in my opinion, the process, not as important, but has so tremendous value. Not just so much value, tremendous value. It changes who you are as a person, as a mother, as a partner to witness it. Partners that are there for natural, drug-free childbirth. It changes them. It promotes better bonding. It promotes easier breastfeeding. And I believe in a spiritual sense, and even, just because the child is not having drugs introduced into its system, on its first day outside the womb, it changes who the child is. So I think it's tremendously important. I think that people need to be talking about their opinions about childbirth a lot more. And doing it in a way that's very passionate and personal for them, and not in a way that shames, but a way that celebrates their own good, happy experiences. Because we never hear about that. We hear about all these traumatic stories about childbirth, of it was like so painful and it was so terrible and it was so scary. And there's not enough women standing up and saying, I had this amazing experience that I felt all the feels and I lived to tell the story and it was amazing and I would do it again. Like, no one is saying that. There's like this small sect of like the hypnobirthing moms and stuff that are really excited about it, but they seem like weirdos. But women all over are having these amazing natural birth experiences, and they're afraid to tell them because then you're shaming all the women who didn't or didn't go your way. Like, I can't talk about breastfeeding, and I get a lot of negative comments when I make breastfeeding posts because there's women who can't do it, and I'm somehow shaming them. Not at all.
I've heard a lot of women in my life, like, overheard these things where they joke about like how fast they want the epidural when they have their baby, and like they just don't do that. They don't go that way. They don't want to do a natural thing. Then they make jokes about it and everything. But like
that makes me sad.
I know, but I think that it's like, what's wrong with somebody going, hey, you can show up to that a little bit differently and have this really deep, rich experience, because some people will thank them for it.
Because no one's told them that.
Because no one told you that.
Everyone told them that it was so scary, so they're anxious to make it not scary for themselves. They're protecting themselves. That's totally normal. If someone says something's going to hurt really bad and it's going to be really scary and terrible, I want to protect myself from that. I did it. I had 3 epidurals. I get it. And then I experienced the other way, and I want to share that. I want to share that there's another way. There's an alternative. There's this perspective. This is what I went through. This could be glorious for you. And even if they decide at the end of it to still go with the epidural, because like, okay, well, that's not that important to me, that's fine. But at least go into it being educated, at least be informed. Like, that's what I feel my job is, just to inform you. And then you can do whatever you want. And I really don't care. I mean, I do care. I actually do care. I want all women to feel like all the great experience of like fully what our bodies can do. But I'm not going to judge you for it or not be your friend because you had an epidural.
Do you feel like it's important just for women, and especially even generationally, to pass that information on to each
Yes.
other and handhold each other into things? Because I know, like, it's hard for me to talk about the birth process, obviously, right, being a man, but I've gone through different experiences that were extremely challenging, painful, and things like that, where I didn't want to go in there, and I was challenged and almost brought into them from other men that knew that I would have a transformative experience and come out on the other side.
Well, that's why I'm a doula.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that why you do the work that you do too?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're here for. I mean, our work at the end of the day is it's to be of service to other people and to bring, and we have the perspective of being in one place and going to another. So now we have to step up and bring, those people through that transition. I the most important work that I'm ever going to do in my life is as being a doula. The magic of video and baby Annabelle reappears. The most important work I'm going to do in this life is going to be as a doula, because that has been the most profound experience that I've ever had. I think that that's where my testimony is as a human being, is, bringing life into this world, and being a mom is the most important thing to me. Doesn't have to be the most important thing to everybody. Disclaimer there.
Well, you're very good at it.
So I want to tell that story of how it changed me as a woman. And it didn't change me with the first baby. It didn't change me with the second or the third. Like, obviously it changed me, it turned me into a mother. It changed my path and my journey. But where I felt this profound spiritual change, I know you're going to nurse and it's okay in this video. I know. This profound spiritual change was when I experienced my completely drug-free, intervention-free, intervention meaning I did not step into a hospital, when I did it at home in an intimate setting. And the first home birth was amazing. The second one changed even more because it was more intimate. It was less, like with the first one, I had a lot of family around. The second one, it was just my husband and me and my midwives. So, and that's another thing that women don't understand too, that I just want to say, that intervention starts the moment you step through the hospital doors. That's when the intervention starts. And that's when not that you lose control, but this is why it's important for women to hear this message, so that they know when they need to start enforcing their control. And that's my role as a doula, to just be there for her, to remind her of the things that she may have forgotten about her plan, because monitors and strangers and students and people are touching her and prodding her and hooking her up to things. And it starts becoming a little bit overwhelming when you want to focus on this birth experience. So I remove all of that stuff for her. I kind of like have a little shield where I keep her calm and at peace and inside herself, because that's where she needs to be at that moment. So
Tell me quickly.
Yeah,
I did the research on this a little bit. I read up on it when I was talking to Amethyst a few weeks ago. The difference between a doula and a midwife.
Okay, well, a midwife is a care provider who actually delivers the baby. She's like a doctor.
Medical training.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a doula is a completely non-medical person. Non-medical personnel. Doula.
So sort of an educator and an emotional supporter, and
well, the word means, it's from Greek, and it's basically servant to a woman. So I'm just there for the woman and her partner, to offer emotional, educational support, constant support. So it could be anything from rubbing feet to, practicing affirmations and meditation with her, to running out to get something for them to eat so that the husband can serve her better, or the partner can serve her better. It's just like, it's anything you need. I'm just there. I'm there for support of the woman and her partner if she so wishes.
Well, I think that I recognize the reason why that kind of got us all worked up, that article, and the flaw in it is the title of it is, you should, or I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but
you don't get to have an opinion.
You don't get to have an opinion. I think that it might have been better delivered and served if it were, you don't get to judge somebody on the choices they've made or something like that, because we all know that in life. We all know that. I mean, and sometimes things are very powerful. Like there are people that are involved in, they go into very deep, dark places with bad experiences like drugs and bad decisions and things like that. And then it serves them very well. Like you look at the life of Malcolm X or somebody like that. Like when they go to dark places and they either get sick or make bad choices and they have awakenings, like, yes, all these, things can kind of serve people. And so to judge somebody based on those things can be a dangerous place and a slippery slope. But to have an opinion on how somebody should live a better life, or to say, there's this other experience in the birth process that you might want to investigate, because I think it's a very rich experience, isn't shaming anybody. That's why I think
people loved it. It was so like, yeah, right on, because my baby had, and this is another really dangerous thing that came out of that. If I can interrupt and talk over you for a second. Then what happens is everybody thinks that they're the exception. So all these people who had to have cesareans or couldn't breastfeed because their body didn't make enough milk, or their doctors told them they had to supplement or whatever, people who were probably robbed of a beautiful experience, because we all know that all the intervention rates are way too high. I just read a really interesting article from Consumer Reports, and that hippie rag, those revolutionaries, they did this amazing story on interventions in American hospitals and how it's not making us safer. In fact, it's making us far more at higher risk of infant mortality and mothers dying in childbirth. It's super, super scary. And so they wrote all this stuff because doctors and medical professionals are telling people that they have to do this because it's convenient or because they're scared of malpractice. So all of these women walking around saying, I had to have a cesarean, you probably didn't. You really probably didn't. And for us not to have an opinion on that because we're scared of telling you that you were wrong, I'm more scared of you getting pregnant again and having another dangerous, unnecessary procedure. So maybe for the next time. That's what's scary. So you don't have an opinion. You could be saving someone's life potentially. Or at least saving their spirit. So I will continue to have opinions.
You are so worked up today.
I am, because I don't know why people don't care about each other's souls. We care so much about hurting their feelings, but we don't care at all about saving their souls or building good relationships or the future of the species. It's like, if we continue to become so disconnected from these processes that we were meant to go through, even the pain of childbirth, what are we going to be? Like, what does our future look like when we don't even know what it's like to feel human anymore? Because we're drugging ourselves with either actual drugs or food as drugs. Like we're trying to avoid pain in every single instance, and we don't even know what it feels like to be human. It's just so sad to me. I could do this for like the next 6 hours.
I'm so glad that I sent you that. Well, we're going to do another podcast either tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
And I know we have more questions. So we're going to save the rest for that. I have so many, there's a lot of questions we didn't cover. I have Love is Mighty shoes for you. I'll give those to you in the next podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The fermentation book is finally complete. So people should go to everydaydetox.org and they should please buy the fermentation book because that supports more podcasts.
We're going to ferment some stuff right now for Bexlife.
Yeah. We're going to make fresh sauerkraut.
Can I eat it tonight, or is this something I have to wait for?
You have to wait for it, but I brought...
Oh, you brought stuff.
I brought completed sauerkraut for tonight. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, guys, we're going to end it there because we went on and on and on and talked about all sorts of things, and I couldn't really figure out how to end that podcast. But that about wraps it up. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We have another one coming very soon. Please go to bexlife.com and check out the fermentation video that we shot, as well as the short forms of some of these topics that we discussed in the podcast. Head on over to everydaydetox.org. Sign up for the newsletter, find out when these podcasts air, download an ebook, support the podcast. Look out for podcast number 12 coming very soon, and we will see you guys next time.